Good evening. I'm going to welcome everybody to our meeting. We will open this meeting at 7:09. I'm sorry a little bit for the delay. I'd love to invite you to join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next agenda item is the approval of minutes for the governing board meeting on August 11th, 2026. Do I have a motion?
I will second.
We're going to go back and forth tonight. So we have Mr. Buster and Mrs. Tippett. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not seeing any, the motion carries. And I also will say for anybody here or listening, Ms. Anderson is excused this evening. She's taking her daughter to college, so we are all mourning with her. And then Mr. King is away at another meeting tonight. So it's a little bit, it's just the three of us tonight. We'll move on to our general functions, and our first item is staff, student, and community recognitions. Mr. Cruz.
Thank you, President Todd, members of the board. We don't have any special announcements, but we do have several people here with just wide recognitions. First up is Mr. Dean Norris, followed by Mr. Jeff Fox.
Good evening, Superintendent Cruz, President Pratt, members of the board. I'd like to start by recognizing Sydney Stickroth. She's our Tier 1 PBIS core team leader. Sydney has taken a strong leadership role in helping us build a positive behavior system across our school. Her efforts, along with the work of our PBIS team and staff, have contributed to students receiving about half as many behavior referrals as they did this time last year. I'd also like to recognize Jamie Tornator, our behavior specialist. Jamie consistently provides students and staff with the support, strategies, and resources they need or needed to help students be successful. Her steady presence and willingness to step in and help make a meaningful difference for our students and our school community. I would also like to recognize Shelly Veru for her work addressing chronic absenteeism. Shelly has been intentional about monitoring attendance, following up with families, and motivating students to be at school. As a result of those efforts, we saw just over a 2% decrease in our chronic absenteeism rate last year. Finally, I'd like to recognize Jennifer Valor and Chelsea Moore for leading our Web, Where Everybody Belongs orientation for our incoming sixth graders. They did an excellent job helping our new sixth graders feel welcome, connected, and prepared as they transition to middle school. Thank you.
Mr. Parks, followed by Mrs. Wilco.
Thank you, President Pratt and Superintendent Cruz and the members of the board. I'd first like to recognize our whole staff, students, and community for a great start of the year. It was a really good start of the year. A special shout out to the front office staff and our counselors for first organizing the student events, but the counselors also doing the master schedule and all that stuff, getting it ready to go and all the schedules. So it went pretty flawlessly, and I was very proud of them. My first personal recognition is actually here today. Her name is Megan Bladine. She's back there. And she is going to the NAU Masters in Leadership cohort. She was at our leadership meeting today, so she's shadowing and doing some stuff with Mrs. Johnson, Mr. Carrier, and I. But she is our ITL for math, and she runs all kinds of things. She's our character education coordinator, and overall just helper of everything. I'm not abusing her too much with trying to get her to do stuff. Well, I'm like, ooh, this is a great job for you, and I'm gonna go home. No, I'm just kidding. I don't do that too often. But we're very thankful for Megan, and I think she's gonna be a great leader someday. She's already a great leader, but she's gonna be a great administrator someday too. I'd like to recognize the infamous Nancy Webergraf. I keep dragging her back. Every year she's like, I'm done, Jeff, I'm done. But I keep dragging her back, and her and Gloria, they did a great job with the Link Crew freshman orientation. It's our biggest freshman group. We had 265 freshmen in our Andrada class this year, so it was our biggest one. So they had a lot of work to do, and they organized all the upper kids to be able to help out. Also like to thank Sean Perez and Jim Nelson. Those are my workhorses, man. They get things done. They come to the school, and it doesn't matter what happens. They hang TVs, they paint, they do whatever, they put stuff together. And if a teacher needs something, they're like, they're the first one in line to go up there and help out. And I just can't thank them enough, because it gives the district a little bit of breathing room, so we're not banging on the door saying, maintenance, please come do this. I'd also like to recognize Rebecca Warren. She takes all of our photos for our students, and her kids basically do the whole thing, and she coordinates it, and she did a great job, ran through all 915 of our kids this past week. And she basically does that for all of our athletic programs as well. And it's a great program for her to be able to do that. And then lastly, I'd like to thank our new athletic director, Jeff Bolt. He came from Cienega over to us. This is our first year as athletic director. He's been in special education for many, many years. He's doing a fantastic job, learning the job, but also running with the job. And then all of our fall coaches like Chris Story, Amanda Ortega, our cross country coaches, Ryan Campbell, Sarah Herrera, and Emilio Torres for our volleyball, and then Caitlin Govan and Alyssa Taylor for Spirit Line. So I just wanted to thank you guys for the opportunity to thank those guys, and it's a privilege being here.
Thank you, Mr. Parks. Mrs. Robo, followed by Mrs. Stewart.
Good evening, President Pratt, Mr. Kruth, members of the board. I'll say that my recognition is about a year overdue because I'm going to wrap in some staff members who have just stepped up over the last year to fill holes at Saguaro Creek. At the end of the summer last year, we got word that one of our middle school teachers wouldn't be able to start and open our brand new school. And it was a family emergency, completely valid, but it kind of left us scrambling. And we had a hard time filling that position. In fact, it took us until March to fill that teacher role. And so, of course, holes just don't happen at Saguaro Creek. And so I just want to honor some staff members who stepped up to fill the holes. The first is Lizette Fay. She's our gifted teacher at Saguaro Creek. And she stepped up and quickly became our 7th, 8th, and 9th grade math teacher. And when I say that teaching those math classes was out of her comfort zone, it was really out of her comfort zone, but it didn't matter to her. She stepped up, did more work, and just did what was best for kids. In addition, our student achievement teacher, Ashley Campos, took on a 7th grade math class so that our teachers and our kids had the support that they needed. It minimized class sizes, and the students had the classes that they needed. And I'm just so grateful for the two of them that did that. As we started this year, we had a few vacancies as well. In our special education department, we were down 1 resource teacher and 1 inclusion teacher. And in special education, those roles are really critical. And our current inclusion specialist, Christina Hernandez, and our resource teacher, Melissa Puckett, stepped up and filled the void. They took on the entire K-8 caseload on their backs. And our special education paras, who we could not do our work without, stepped up too. Really, really proud of them. In addition, last year we didn't have an assistant principal, and this year we don't have a school counselor, but office manager Kim Lomax is someone that I count on my left hand and my right hand. She is my person, and I couldn't do my job without her. And, you know, we believe that kids, especially middle schoolers, need a lot of tethers. I once heard an analogy that if a middle schooler was a float in the Macy's Day Parade, they would fly really well if they just had a bunch of people on the ground holding their tethers. And so we use that analogy at Saguaro Creek and just say we want a lot of adults helping our middle schoolers and being tethers. And Mrs. Lomax, you can find her in classrooms, you can find her at lunch duty, you can find her connecting with kids, because a counselor isn't someone who just has a degree, it's someone who cares about kids. And Mrs. Lomax does that every single day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robo. Mrs. Stewart, followed by Ms. Stout.
Thank you, Mr. Caruth, President Pratt, and members of the board. I wanted to start first with recognizing Rena Whitwer, who sat with me last Friday for a few hours just to get our A+ application squeaky clean and let me submit it on Friday so I could have, excuse me, a stress-free weekend. I also wanted to recognize our admin team who do so much more than what is on that written job description. I wanted to recognize Brett Batty. He's our assistant principal and has run our PAUSE program, which brings parents into the school and helps them just be with the kids and just get to know us and be another set of eyes. I wanted to thank Brianne Brace, who is our student achievement teacher, but she's also our student council sponsor. She's also our breakaway sponsor. She also helps with web. She also does anything and everything that anybody needs, including the PBIS team and the core team. You know, it's people like that that make sure that a school runs smoothly. And then I wanted to recognize our Dean of Students, Kara Evans, and thank you for that position. And when Kara first started last year, we weren't sure, we hadn't had a dean before. We weren't really sure what the role would be. But Kara has taken on so many responsibilities. She does all of our chronic absences for us. She's taken on the role of being 504 coordinator. She does everything with our PBIS and our school store. She's just running every minute of the day, and really we couldn't run and operate as smoothly or offer the supports to the kids without those people. And then I wanted to thank Stacy Dillards, who helps me with the athletic director duties, with the money and making sure everybody's got what they need to get the season going. She does all that paperwork for me, and it's just a great help. I wanted to recognize Lisa Locke, who's our behavior specialist. And Lisa is just kind of like, what's that Roadrunner thing in those cartoons? And you just see like this little blur. That's Lisa. She's going from here to there, and then you hear her on the radio and she's needed there. And that's her whole entire day. I don't think she stops for a minute, and provides support for all those kids that just need an extra loving and helping hand. And I wanted to recognize Bridget Evans and Jessica Vanderford, who are our student service coordinator and our counselors, because kids are coming to school with a lot of stuff, and you routinely see them with cuts on their arms, or, parents are getting divorced, or somebody's died, or they just have anxiety about the world around them. And they provide such a safe and comforting place for them to come and feel better about themselves, but also serve our parents who just sort of don't know what to do. And they help them with that. So I really appreciate all those folks. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Mrs. Stout.
I need to get you a step stool. That's what you need.
Tell you about my first job that involved a step stool at a counter at Wendy's. Good evening, President Pratt, Mr. Kruth, and members of the board. I just want to do some recognition of some incredible people that have influenced the work that we do in our department in multiple ways. The first one is Raina Krasuski, and she is a secretary in the superintendent's area. She is an incredible teammate who consistently shows up for others, whether she's solving scheduling challenges, offering a listening ear, or helping through a difficult problem. She leads with kindness and collaboration. Raina truly demonstrates that relationships are the foundation of our culture. And that was from our admin assistant, Marie Nguyen. Shelly Veru is a rock star over at Rincon Vista, who Mr. Norse already highlighted, but I just need to add a bit to that. She's just a true champion for students at Rincon Vista. Her work around chronic absenteeism, mentorship, and student support is grounded in, she's just compassionate, she's positive, and just genuine in her commitment to helping students succeed. Her care for both students and staff is evident in everything that she does. And that is from Emily Sapala, my team. And then Maria Castro, who is Mrs. Dabney's executive assistant. Peggy Benson Runyon nominated her. Maria is a tremendous asset to our district and a wonderful example of wholehearted service. She's played an important role in district communication around the Arizona Healthy Schools Act, while also strengthening key community partnerships. Maria consistently steps in where needed and brings thoughtfulness, commitment, and a collaborative spirit to her. I also want to recognize Gail Morrison. She's a part of our lead counselor team. She's really gone just above and beyond in her role in the first half of the quarter, bringing tremendous passion and advocacy for suicide prevention efforts across the district and the community. She's helped coordinate 20 plus QPR trainings, which equips her staff to recognize warning signs and connect individuals to help. Text Talk Act, which builds awareness and encourages conversation around mental health, and assists in intensive training focused on suicide intervention skills. From ensuring every elementary staff member receives QPR to making sure that every new hire has that QPR training, she's just building a suicide safer Vail community. I'd also like to just give a huge amount of credit to our McKinney-Vento team. We have had more McKinney-Vento students coded in the first 5 weeks of school than we ever have before. We're almost up to 150. And there's a team of 4 that come alongside Jill Wells to get the families coded as quickly as possible and get them linked to services. So I'd like to just recognize Teresa Hassey, Tiffany Midkiff, Chelsea Morin, and Lisa Purcell. They just led a tremendous effort in identifying and coding the children and making sure that they're connected to some of those essentials that they need for their families. We also, on August 15th, we had McKinney-Vento Shopping Day, where all of our students who were coded McKinney-Vento came to Walmart and were allocated federal funds and were able to shop for new clothes for the school year. And we just had some people from the business office who just with their huge hearts are willing to serve alongside our department to make that happen. Julia Pierce is one of those folks. She went above and beyond in making sure the funding was secured and was just at Walmart all day helping families. The other person is Sarah Jarvis from purchasing. She worked tirelessly behind the scenes to manage purchasing logistics, keep the credit cards functioning, just all of those pieces that go into the logistics of the day. So yeah, thank you.
Just have two other district-wide recognitions. One is student focused and one is community focused. The first, this is the time of year when all of our extracurricular programs are really getting up and running too, and practices are happening and things around all fall activities are in full swing. But it's we're just getting to the cusp of when performance season is, whatever that is, relative to fine arts or athletics. Recently, though, I want to highlight one that our Cienega Empire Mike Mountain choirs got together for a joint choir day under the direction of Jordan Ritka, who is the director of the Tucson Boys Choir. And by all accounts, that was just an incredible workshop and day and learning and sharing experience for all three of those choirs and their students. And just want to say a special thank you to the choir directors, Jeremy Vega from Cienega High School, Aubrey Wilkes from Empire High School, Anka Michelle from Micah Mountain High School, as well as accompanist Chantel Petty from CHS and Evan Hodge on bass from Micah Mountain High School for making that kind of collective experience possible for our students. And also an example of what excellence looks like for our choir students. So thank you to them. Last Friday, we hosted our quarterly business Vail Business Alliance group. There's several people who have in our office. Mrs. Stowe is one of them. Mrs. Bates, Mr. Aaron Schmidt, and Mr. Mark Tate in the back, and Mrs. Peggy Benson Runyon, in particular, have pulled together a group of businesses in our community to really look at how we can share information and share resources and have mutually beneficial conversations and relationships. And so it's not just a matter of, it is something different than a mixer or a chamber. It's really focused around how can we help each other? What does a really strong school district mean to local businesses, and what can local businesses benefit from that, and how the local businesses benefit our schools. So that's the foundation of that. We hosted on Friday a principal for a day. We opened it primarily to that group, although there were some others from outside of that group who attended too. And over 20 local business leaders and some community members participated side by side with our principals for the morning, and then gathered here for a lunch and learn and share. It's always one of those things you think, oh, this sounds like a really good idea to have people tag along with our principals, but you're not exactly sure what that's going to look like when they debrief. And the debrief conversation around what shared experiences were, and in particular, what the business leaders saw and learned by their experience in schools was stunning and spectacular. So it was just a huge success, and just another great example of inviting people in and people joining us in our mission of where education is a community. Good stuff. That's all I have for staff, student, and community recognitions.
Thank you, Mr. Crew. Moving on, our next item is call to the public and acknowledgement of public requests to speak for items on or not on tonight's agenda. At this time, I do not have any requests to speak. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak? Do you have a form? Okay. At the very back, I think Ms. Dabney is going to help you. There's like a little form that you just fill out just so that we can follow up with you.
Do you want to move on to the next one, and then I'll come back?
Yeah, I just want to clarify. Are you here to talk about something on tonight's agenda? Separate? Okay. So we'll wait. I'll wait just for a moment, and you can do that. Actually, let's go on to the superintendent's report and then we'll go right back to that. Is that okay?
Yep,
Mr.
perfect.
Kruth and Ms.
And I will speak very slowly because I have no report to.
Oh, sorry. Then we only have 3 board members. Maybe we can go on to the board reports.
Yes, that'd
at
be
this
great.
time. Are there board members who wish to make a report this evening?
I do not have a word.
You don't have a board report. It's okay. That is all good, Mr. Bester.
Well, let's see. Ms. Pratt, Ms. Anderson and I attended the Vail Religious Leader Luncheon. So hats off to Ms. Heather Stowe for putting that all together because it was really great. It was my first time. It delivered beyond measure, not just because it was a religious luncheon, but this provided a really great opportunity. Not only to embarrass Miss Anderson with my rendition of Happy Birthday with all the religious leaders joining in, which I so greatly appreciated, but it really offered the opportunity to strengthen our partnerships and between the Vail School District and local faith-based community leaders. The gathering included a state of the district update by Mr. Kruth, and followed by a discussion and feedback focused on supporting students, families, and the broader Vail community. The event reinforced the importance of collaboration, community partnership, and advancing student success and fostering strong connections throughout the district. So again, thank you to Ms. Stowe as well as everybody that attended the event. It was really phenomenal.
Mr. Bester. I just have a really quick board report. I also want to recognize Ms. Stowe and her team for their work on the religious leaders meeting. It always seems to come on a day that I just really need a meeting like that. So always super grateful to attend and grateful for the work that they do in our community and for our children. I also want to recognize all those who worked on the principal of the day. It was so fun to be able to go and do the debrief with all of our business leaders who got to be the principal that morning. And I think they all had such a wonderful experience. And I loved your remarks that day where it just said that it's changing the narrative of education that that people can see this is what we do in our schools and this is how we meet the needs of families. So I love that opportunity and grateful for all of our business leaders who stepped into that role. So we'll move on, but we're actually going to go backwards back to call to the public. So this is for items not on tonight's agenda. Let's see. Those wishing to address the governing board on items not on tonight's agenda may do so at this time. Speakers are requested to hold their comments to 3 minutes. Call to the public will be limited to 30 minutes. We only have 1 speaker. In accordance with the Arizona Open Meeting Law, board members may not respond, comment, or ask questions of speakers regarding issues not on the agenda, but I do have your contact information so I can follow up with you afterwards. So we have our timer here if you'd like to come to the podium and you can speak to us tonight.
Good evening. Thank you for having me tonight. I'm just a little nervous, sorry. Okay, so dear Vail School District Governing Board, the death of 11-year-old boy riding his bike, to school last week in the Marina at the Ford, one of my worst fears when my son rides his bike to and from school. I know I'm not alone in this fear. As parents, we want to give our children some freedom to be kids and become more independent, while also understanding that we cannot control everything that happens outside of their homes. I think we can all agree that student safety is collectively our #1 priority. I'm here as a parent to bring attention to student safety concern involving children who remain on campus after the regular school day for sports, clubs, and other extracurricular activities. I also want to take this opportunity to thank the governing board, school administrators, teachers, and staff for the many measures already in place to help keep our children safe, including safety drills and other protective measures. I recognize that a great deal of thought and effort goes into creating a safe environment for our students, and I appreciate those continued effort. With that in mind, I would like to ask the Vail School District to consider an additional safety measure for students who are released later in the afternoon. While I understand that the school day has a designated dismissal time and that crossing guard coverage is typically based around that schedule, many students remain at school for practices, games, clubs, and other activities and are released later in the afternoon. When these students leave campus, they may still need to cross busy streets, which in my neighborhood would include Rita Road. However, the crossing guard assistant available during regular dismissal is no longer available during these later release times. I would respectfully ask the Vail School District to consider extending or otherwise providing crossing guard coverage during the later afternoon release period for students participating in school-sponsored activities. Even a limited period of coverage during those times when these students are typically leaving campus could provide a layer of safety and reassurance for students, parents, and staff. I recognize that staffing and scheduling crossing guards comes with logistical and budgetary considerations. However, I believe it's worth evaluating whether there is a way to provide this additional safety measure for students who are on campus later than the typical school dismissal time because of activities offered through the school. Our students should be able to participate in sports, clubs, and other activities without their safety when leaving campus, when their safety when leaving campus becoming additional concern. Without their safety Our students should be able to participate in sports, clubs, and other activities without their safety when leaving campus becoming an additional concern for families. We do not need to wait for a tragedy to happen before we look for opportunities to make our community safer. Taking proactive measures now can help prevent a future tragedy and give families greater peace of mind. I had a little bit more of it. Thank you for your time.
Yes, and if you want to email me your document, and then we can forward it to the other board members who weren't here as well. And then I'll follow up with you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming. I know it's a little nerve-wracking. Thank you. And just to clarify with the audience, we don't have anybody here to speak on items on tonight's agenda, correct? Okay, not seeing any, then we're going to move on to the consent agenda. All items listed below are consent matters and will be considered by one motion at this time. There will be no discussion of consent items. Any board member may remove an item from the consent agenda by request. All items not accepted and approved as part of the consent agenda will be considered individually. Do any board members wish to pull an item? Okay, Mr. Crick.
Thank you, President Pratt, members of the board. It's recommended that the Vail School District Governing Board approve all items on the consent agenda as presented.
Bill, accept a motion.
I'll move.
We have Ms. Tippett,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Lester. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Any
Opposed? Not seeing any, the motion carries. We'll move on to old business. Our first item is the ASBA policy advisories, 1047 through 1064, an action item. Mr. Crick.
Thank you, President Pratt, members of the board. This is an item that was studied at the last board meeting, as referenced in the background, that our ASBA, or Arizona School Board Association Policy Service, has reviewed all of the changes out of the legislative session that are moving into law, and made recommended adjustments to policies relative to those things. If anybody's interested, it comprises something that looks like this. Those things have been reviewed and discussed in our last meeting. Happy to review any individual one or go through them again if you would like. But since we started last time, I'll just go ahead and make the recommendation and then open it up for questions from there. It's recommended that the Vail School District Governing Board approve ASBA policy advisories 1047 through 1064 as presented.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve as presented.
Mr. Lester.
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Tippett. Comments or questions?
I know we had a lot of time last meeting to have Mr. Cruz go through pretty much chapter and verse and discussion. I really believe that these are in line with Vail School District's culture, our practices, our principles, and it's just, I'd say no brainer, but it's prudent that we move forward.
Yeah, Mr. Cruz, I really appreciate you kind of going over it line by line with us last time. I know that took a lot of time, but I found it really encouraging that we were already in line with most of the things coming forward from the legislature. So kudos to AZ Ledge for catching up.
I agree. Thank you. I know last time it took a little bit of time, but I do appreciate your diligence in going through all of it with us and your time to research it ahead of time. There's no other comments or questions or concerns, and I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not seeing any, the motion carries. We'll move on to new business. Our first item is enrollment updates and an important item, Mr. Ruth.
Thank you, President Pratt, members of the board. It is about this time of year that the picture of what our enrollment for the year begins to take shape. And Mrs. Dabney's going to run through a presentation of that, and I'll just provide a little bit of an umbrella around why we're looking at that kind of mid to late August. Even though our school year starts the third week of July, a couple things need to happen. One, we have a 10-day drop window, which is functionally two weeks. And then because our schools start earlier than many other places in the country, it really isn't until about the first month of school or so that we're able to kind of analyze where we are with our enrollment relative to where we thought we would be and relative to other years, and begin to get a broader picture of what that looks like. And so with that, wanted to be able to provide you an enrollment update, and also just beyond the numbers, look at kind of trends and issues around enrollment for Vail School District, but also a number of trends and issues around enrollment for all institutions that are focused on young people. So I'll turn it over to Mrs. Dabney.
Thank you, President Pratt, Mr. Caruth, and members of the board. So yeah, we're going to look at a high kind of overview of our current enrollment, but also really kind of dig into some of the trends that we've seen for the last couple of years too, and things that are important for us to keep our eye on. So just some basic Vail demographic information. So we know that there's been a decline in birth rates the last several years. What's interesting is since 2006 in Pima County, the Pima County birth rate has declined by 30%. So a pretty significant decline over the last 20 years or so. But what's interesting about that is in Vail, when you look at the number of births since 2006, we've remained relatively stable. And it really speaks kind of the economy that we experience in Vail. We know that birth rates are down, they're down significantly, but we are also experiencing population growth with new developments and new homes and families moving into Vail. And so even with a significant decrease in birth rates, our number of births in the Vail area have remained relatively stable. So in 2006, 666 births in Vail. And then the last year that we have data on, 2024, about 677 births. So it's balancing the birth rate reality that school districts are seeing across the nation, across Arizona, across Pima County, with the development and growth that we've seen in Vail, and planning for that, what that looks like. So just some general demographic information for our kind of that pipeline. So when we talk about our enrollment information, just some key takeaways from that. One is our student enrollment. When we talk about student enrollment, we're talking about noses and seats, actual students. That is different than our weighted average daily membership, our weighted ADM. Our budget is based on the weighted ADM, those personal characteristics that students come with. If they're students that qualify for free and reduced lunch, if they're students that are EL learners, high school students that receive special education services, those individual characteristics play into that weighted ADM, whereas student enrollment really is just how many noses and seats. When we look at our staffing allocation for the district and our projections, we base that on the student enrollment. Our budget is based on the weighted ADM. So they are two different numbers and two different things to consider. When you look at our current enrollment as of last Friday, it's 14,915 students. And what that means is from our last day of school, last school year in May of 2026 to last Friday, there's a difference of 50 students there. One of the questions that we get asked is what does our out of district open enrollment look like in Vail? And wanted to be able to provide that information for you as well. So our current out of district open enrollment in Vail is 7.7%. When you look at that across kind of what the norm is, we have several school districts that have a much higher percentage of out of district open enrollment that they rely on. So for example, If you look at Catalina Foothills School District or Tinka Verde School District, over 50% of their students are out of district open enrollment. In Bell, we're 7.7. One of the things to keep in mind with out of district open enrollment is we're governed by state statute when it comes to that. So Arizona law is very, very clear. Arizona law requires that schools accept open enrollment if they have space. And so that's just the reality of the law. So when we look at that number, we look at space, it helps guide those decisions. One of another really kind of interesting fact in Vail is when we look at how many students actually live in the Vail School District attendance boundary and are choosing a Vail school, we have an incredibly high percentage. So 90.7% of our students that live within the district are choosing a Vail school. 9.3% of students that live within the Vail School District are choosing other options, whether that's another district school, a charter school, an ESA, but that's a 9.3% number. That's an interesting number because when you look at what the state average is, 31.8% of students are not choosing their district school across the state. That's the state average. So when you look at how many students the district is capturing because of the different choices and options that parents have in Vail, it's incredibly high, especially compared to that state average. So just something to keep in mind. And when you look at kind of how many families percentage-wise are choosing other options and how many are being accepted through out of district and open enrollment, it's about a wash there. A little bit of a difference, but pretty close. So how does our school enrollment look compared to our efficiency capacity? So when we are looking at how full a school is, there's a couple numbers that we look at. The number that is our efficiency capacity is a number that when that school is operating at peak efficiency. So it's that Thanksgiving full number. Every classroom is in use, the classrooms are full. It's the number that if we're going to operate at peak efficiency, that's the number that we should be at. So when we look at that, I just went ahead and averaged this amongst kind of the different grade level bands. We have capacity, we have space in Vail. So on average, and some of these numbers are higher at different individual sites and some are smaller individual sites. It's just an average. But at the elementary school, we have about a capacity to that efficiency capacity, about 95 students at the elementary level. When you look at kind of our K-8, K-12 schools, we have an average of about 64 students that we have capacity below that efficiency capacity. At our middle schools, it's about 51 students. And at our high schools, it's about 71 students, average across all sites. So the big picture with that is we have space. We have one school in the district right now that's above that efficiency capacity. That's Micah Mountain High School. But that number is becoming more stable. We had a very large sophomore class. And once that group kind of moves through the system, we're seeing that stabilize. So all of our schools have they have room to that efficiency capacity number. So that's just something to be mindful of. When we talk about district trends, and we're going to go into some of these in more detail, we have seen a dip in our kindergarten enrollment this year. Previously, the last 3 years, we had seen kind of an upward tick, but this year we have seen a dip in that overall kindergarten enrollment number. So are we starting to see some of the birth rate trends that we see across Piedmont County start to settle and Vail a little bit? It's something to keep an eye on. Another kind of true pattern that we see is that our elementary cohorts grow from year to year. So our kindergartners who become first graders, it grows. Our first graders who become second graders, that cohort grows all throughout the elementary years. That is a very consistent pattern that we see. We'll talk a little bit more about that as well. Another consistent pattern that we see is a bump from our fifth graders to becoming sixth graders. So we see an influx of students that come to Vail as sixth graders. We see that same kind of pattern when we have that transition from 8th grade to 9th grade. We'll talk a little bit more about that too. And then our high school enrollment is pretty stable. We see about a 1% decrease from year to year, which is a really kind of normal pattern that we see nationwide in high schools. And one of the things that we're watching is that cohort from 11th grade to 12th grade. We see a little dip there. But when you look at overall total enrollment, it's not a massive number. It's 33 students out of 1,300 kids, but it's still something that we want to keep an eye on. One of the biggest jumps that we get, though, is that freshman group. And what we have found is that when students move into high school, on average, we've had about 86 students that are Bell students. They live within the Bell School District attendance boundaries, but they didn't attend a Bell Middle School. They come back to us in high school. The number this year was 79, but that average is about 86. And then when you count out of district open enrollment, that increases that number as well. So just some of the kind of big overviews on the cohort. So Bell is a destination district. Our parents are choosing Bell as their child's education destination. That cohort growth in elementary is about 38 students per cohort. We see that year after year. That large kind of sixth grade trend that we see is about 54 students that were not in any of our elementary schools join us in sixth grade. And then that largest number, 86 average for students joining us as freshmen. That kindergarten pipeline we've talked about. You can see that we were kind of trending up and then we had a dip this year. So that's definitely something that we're watching, and there's not enough information. Is this a trend or is this a blip? But we know birth rates are down, so it's definitely something to be mindful of. That elementary cohort growth is reliable, it's predictable. We see it year after year, and so it's something that we can count on. Again, that middle school growth, we see that big bump in sixth grade. And then we see that lessen in 7th and 8th grade. But we definitely can count on that larger group of sixth graders. And then, of course, that high school number, we know we're going to get students that return to us in high school. And it's just something that's predictable when we're planning and thinking of space. Our high school enrollment, again, we see that decrease from cohort to cohort, about 1%, and then watching that 11th and 12th grade. So just kind of as an overview, our elementary has growing cohorts. We've got a very predictable pattern there. We really need to keep our eye on that kindergarten pipeline. Middle school, we have kind of stable growth there, but we see a strong entry and then softening a little bit in that 7th and 8th grade. And then high school, pretty stable enrollment as well, but we also see that late grade attrition we have to pay attention to. So that's really kind of the story of what our enrollment looks like. In terms of next steps, what we're planning on doing is getting an enrollment committee together to really look at these trends and dig into them, and spend some time just looking at some of the creative things that we can do with the enrollment reality, and come up with some possible recommendations that we will bring before you. But this reality in terms of what our overall enrollment looks like also provides opportunities for some creative and innovative ideas and plannings to come forward. So our next step is to get that group together and to start looking at those things, and really kind of digging into it and coming up with some good ideas. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mrs. Devin. This is an informal item, and I think the only other thing I would add before turning it over for questions or comments is the reality of the decline in birth rates relative to the growth in Vail has resulted in a kind of a flat or a flattened out and stable number of young people moving into our grades. And when you remove those that are choosing another option and add those that are choosing us as another option, it's really a pretty flat. That's also a kind of a wash. And so for us as a reality and as an organization who have existed in a growth mindset of we're adding students year over year, the need to adjust to a reality of how are we operating? How are we remaining innovative? How are we serving parents? How are we being fiscally responsible? All the things that our guiding principles help us consider as a district that is not growing at the rate that we have. I think all of us have gotten used to is something of a bit of a mind shift and an adjustment that we need to make organizationally. Financially, we're in good shape right now because of the budgeting and planning. That isn't the urgency of this issue. I think the urgency of the issue is just understanding what the implications mean for us, that we're not growing at. I mean, I remember the times we were growing at 9% a year in the early 2000s. I mean, we were growing so fast. The last few years, it's been 1 or 2%, and so I think we've kind of caught up to that point where that's flattened out. And it's the reality of anybody who serves young people. And I say this in business organizations because it's coming there too. I mean, if people don't start to understand what it means to have fewer people coming to serve, then we're not in making adjustments around that, then you're not prepared for reality. And you see that in what the U of A is doing with their freshman classes as an example, that those things are starting to hit the university levels now. And I really love what Mrs. Dabney said, and wholeheartedly believe that. Those are opportunities for us, and opportunities for us to be innovative, and opportunities for us to look for ways to be efficient and adapt. And we have always done. We've been innovative. We adapt. We have just done that in context of growth. And so this is just a mindset of how do we do that with these current conditions. So with that, happy to know the comments or any questions to this.
Yeah, are there any comments or questions?
And I know we had the great opportunity to discuss during study session, but one thing I think that everybody would like to know is we have a lot of passionate individuals within the district. We have some of the most amount of volunteers anywhere that serve our great school district. Looking at it, if there's somebody out there right now that wants to volunteer, that wants to support this particular initiative and help to move it forward, young parents, colleagues, associates across the spectrum, how would they get involved?
Great question, Mr.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Buster and members of the board. At this point, we're looking at, I think so 2 things I would say. One, what we're talking about is a long-term process, not a short. This isn't something, just another agenda item where we're looking at about a 3-month window of looking at things and bringing forth a recommendation. This is something that is going to be long-term. So in the short term in that process is we need to get our own staff head around what this looks like and bring forward and wrestle with this and come up with some recommendations. Part of that long-term may involve inviting, community and a broader group in to do that. It's not at the exclusion of that group for at this point. It's just a matter of we need to get our own staff and our own leaders up to speed on what the trends are that Mrs. Dabney is speaking about, and get our heads around what are some things that we can do. How do we make some near-term adjustments, and then what is longer range planning? I think when we get into that longer range planning, that's a time when it would be appropriate to expand the group into inviting community and parents and community in the conversation. So it's we absolutely need that voice and want that voice. It's just this is going to be a long-term process, this isn't like trying to reimagine high school transportation like we did last year. This is a longer term, bigger issue. As an example.
Yeah, I think something that we didn't really touch on in the study session is how will being in this kind of new normal for us impact kind of our hiring and onboarding. Like at the start of the years, like we had a very large new teacher induction And I know many districts around the community were having very small cohorts of new staff induction. Are we kind of thinking about that happening within our organization as well? That we will maybe gain an efficiency of a more mature and staff as we were hiring less new teachers every year.
That's a great question, Mr. Booth.
Thank you, President Pratt. Ms. Tippett, great question. I think the answer is kind of unknown at this point. You know, we always have some staff turnover, so there's always those pieces, but we don't anticipate. I can't foresee a situation where we're going to be hiring a lot of additional staff for growth. So it'll be mostly for turnover at that point and retirements, and we have people move. For all the reasons that there's some turnover, that would be more what that looks like. So, and yes, last forever, we have been hiring for growth. The last 2 years, it's been to fill out Saguaro Creek functionally.
Just thinking about the idea of, innovation. And for a long time, we've been able to innovate with new money as, a new year of growth provides a bump in our budget to be able to do that. And so I'm just conceptualizing, how we innovate going forward may be, looking tough looks at like what's working really well, and maybe is there something that isn't working as well, and then that there is that money that we go and we innovate with, or something along those lines. I think there's some discomfort in that because change is hard, but I also think that is a reality that we need to look at squarely as we move forward.
Any other comments or questions? I know this was study that being done, and we were able to discuss it during our study session as well. I love what Ms. Tippett said about just this opportunity for us. I think this is new for everybody in the room. I don't think any of us have been in a district right now where we've had to make this shift, especially in Vail. So it's an opportunity for growth and growth in different ways, I guess. So innovation. Thank you very much, Ms. Dabney. Our next agenda item is the Vail Academy and High School Vision for the Future. It's a study session, Mr. Crew.
Thank you, President Pratt, members of the board. Mr. Hurley is going to come forward and present on this item. It's a study item. And the reason it's a study is if there are recommended changes, some of those things may come back to the board versus the form item that we had previously. Mr. Hurley has been working alongside Ms. Diane Vargo and a large group over the past couple of months to do a focus around the vision and purpose for Vail Academy and High School. Speaking of things that we were just talking about and how to sharpen that focus and make sure that we're still on track there after the school has been around for 30 years, close to 30 years. So I'll let Mr. Hurley walk through kind of the history of that and what that looks like, and happy to answer any questions. Mr. Hurley.
President Pratt, the board, Superintendent Kruth. I'm excited to give you an update, and an update is just what it is. We are about, if we're lucky, halfway through our journey. So this is definitely not a finished product, but I wanted to share with you kind of where we've been. There's some really good information in the background, and I'll kind of summarize it right here, but essentially Vail High School was our first high school, and it was in 1997, and it actually was a trailblazer even then. It was the very first school in Arizona that was a public charter school that was sponsored by a public school district. It was on the campus of the U of A Science and Technology Park, and I really encourage you to find someone that was around that time to see what it was like to bring 100 kids into a cafeteria with a bunch of IBM workers. It was challenging to say the least, but it was a great opportunity for us to open a high school.
It was entertaining.
Entertaining for those of us that were not in charge of discipline or helping grown-ups understand that kids needed 35 minutes to go have some fun.
But it was a great opportunity. We knew that even though we didn't have our own high school in Vail yet, that our families wanted something other than, if you remember at the time, being bused to Santa Rita or Sabino or Benson or Sarita. So it was an option. And since its opening, it is just experienced several iterations. The two main ones that I will bring up is in 2010, when we found out that the Davis Monofin paddle meant that it could not be where it was. We reached an agreement with the Science and Tech Park to move the campus. At that time, as we're doing now, it was like, wait a minute, there's an opportunity. Could we be creative? Could we put a preschool there? Could it just be an elementary school? Should it still be a high school? And what they finally settled on was trying to see about opening a K-12 school, our first K-12 school. And so that happened in 2010. Pretty quickly, we realized that there was a large demand for the elementary school side. So about a decade later, with some bond funds, we expanded to open 2 sections of the K-5 campus. And now there's essentially 2 classes per grade level all the way through. For 30 years, it has been trying to provide experiences to a small number of students. And when you're in the business of running a school for high school that is in the 100 to 150 student range, what you've learned is you need to be flexible. You need to be adaptive. And the things that students want today may not be what they wanted 5 years ago or 10 years ago, let alone 30 years ago. So it's been an incubator. It's been really interesting. It was, as I mentioned, our first charter school. And from that, we thought, hey, what if we opened a Savannah? What if we turned 4 or 5 of our other schools into charter schools? So it was innovative there. It was our first alternative school. The afternoon program, I believe, was the creative name that Mr. Kruth and his colleagues came up with. You can imagine when it ran. Afternoon. That led its way to Pantano. They tried a one-to-one laptop. And it's a really good reminder that sometimes innovation is not a direct path from start to success. It did not go well. It did not succeed. They went a different direction, but it planted a seed in our minds. It taught us some lessons. And when the time came to open a second comprehensive high school, we dug that back up and led to Empire High School being a one-to-one laptop school. It was the online school. They were the online high school before there was ever a VIC. They did it for a long, long time. Then we opened up a VIC. It was a K-12 school, and before that time, we had Mesquite was a K-8 school, but then it un-K-8ed. And so after this happened, people thought, maybe we should do K-8s again. And the latest trend is opening 2 K-8 schools. It was the robotics school. That's what it was famous for a long, long time. And in fact, it was such a great idea that 4 other high schools now offer engineering programs, and we probably have 600 students sitting in engineering classes right now. So it did help create lots of great ideas. And the last one I came up with was the last kind of tagline for it was this private school feel in a public school. And that was really an answer to some of the small elite type schools in town. And that spread to our other high schools all having scholar programs. So there's a scholars program at all of our high schools. So it really has been innovative all along. But in the last couple of years, it has not been innovative. And I think what has happened because of that is it's lost its focus, its singular focus of being, this is who we are. And so that's one of the challenges we have, is to define for our families and our community who it is. Who is Vail High School for? Who is Vail High School not for? The definition, right, of a comprehensive school is you're supposed to be everything to everybody. Whatever kid comes in the door, you should have programs for them. When you're a small school, you're allowed to focus and be a school that is the right type of school for the right type of kid. Okay, so when we didn't have that focus, we had families coming with lots of interests. We have families that are there because they are interested in playing sports at Micah Mountain. We have families that are there because they're interested in being on a K-12 campus, or because they are interested in a small school, or because they're interested in robotics, or because they're interested in being on the Tech Park campus. So that's just 5, I think I've just mentioned, on a campus of 105 kids. Having people there with 5 different needs and 5 different desires creates a big challenge. Do we offer courses for STEM kids, or do we offer courses for sports kids? Do we offer courses for K-12 kids, or do we offer courses for engineering kids? It really makes it a challenge. The other challenge that has happened is the students either didn't know what they were signing up for, or the families weren't excited about what they were signing up for. So we have not had enough families signing up. So we're losing approximately 40% of our 8th graders over the last couple of years who are on campus or choosing something else. We're not bringing in large enough cohorts. Our average the last 3 or 4 years has been about 40 students in the freshman year. And then several students are transferring out. Right now, it's about 4 times the transfer out rate of our other high schools. And so the result of those two things is we're starting freshman classes with 40 students, and by the time they're seniors, there's 19 students. It's just really a challenge to run a school with that. So what we'd love is to have it be 50 students the freshman year and 50 students the sophomore year and 50 students the junior year and 50 students the senior year, because they knew exactly what they were signing up for and they were getting what they were promised. So that's really what we've been trying to work on. As we saw the challenge in the last semester, there was a group that really tried to look at what they could do. We have a waiting list in most of our K-8 grades at Vail Academy and High School. And we had open space in the high school grades. And so as that group looked at that, they thought, well, hey, we could take that space the high school is using and give it to the K-8 and give some families who are on a waiting list a spot and put these other families somewhere. And so that was a solution that they came up with. And what we decided was to bring a larger group together and say, well, what about the solution of exploring ways to increase the high school enrollment? That seems like the easy way, but the innovative way would be, we've had for 30 years, 100-ish families that wanted a small high school experience. What could we provide them? So we got a group together. It's about 45 of us, parents and community members and staff members. We met once in July, again in August. We're meeting again in a couple of weeks. And part of what we've been doing is trying to explore how do small schools survive. So we looked at schools like Savannah. Savannah survives because they put kindergartners and first graders in a classroom together, because they put third graders and fourth graders in the classroom together, or second and third, sorry, because they don't really have specials like the other school has specials. So they implemented ideas to allow the school to function. Schools like Vail Blended, who function with 65 students by not having class on Fridays because their regular teachers teach the electives, by having some online options, by doing just different and creative things. The early college. So we just went through what is it that people are doing that's creative and unique and allows them to survive. The other thing we looked at is schools outside of Vail. So we looked at, we looked at San Miguel High School, who's a private school on the south side of town. It's been running for a number of years, who quite frankly is doing things that when Mr. Baker and I visited them 10 years ago, were not legal for public schools to do, but they're legal for schools to do now. Having flexible seat time is the answer I would give you. We also looked at Bioscience High School, Coding Academy, Great Hearts. Those are all schools that Mr. Barger, Mr. Kruth, and a group of us and I went and visited 5 or 6 years ago as we were looking at this exact option. What is the future of Vail High School and what could we be? We went to Phoenix and viewed all those schools. We've talked about their Innovative Tech High School, which is VUSD's high school on the JTED campus. And then a school within a school, Desert Ridge High School has a School of Innovation and Design that is a 7th through 12th grade STEM focused cohort of students that work through a big comprehensive high school, but they have a focus that's singular. So we're just kind of looking at the options, and really kind of the takeaway that we had from that is when you're a comprehensive high school, you have the flexibility to offer lots of things. But when you're a small high school, you need to be able to use that focus to drive your decisions through. High school principals have to make decisions. Should I offer a second foreign language? Should I offer a section set of CTE courses? Should I offer an AP class? Should I offer a dual enrollment class? And when you have a focus, you're able to say, oh, because this is who we are, we should make this decision. If you don't have a focus and you have groups of families that are there for 6 or 7 different reasons, some families want those extra sections to be for a second fine arts class. Some of them want to be a second CTE class. Some of them want to be AP and dual enrollment classes. Some of them want to be elective classes, and it's really challenging to make that decision where if you have a singular focus, as I mentioned earlier, if you're bioscience high school, you're making decisions to be more bioscience-y. Mm-hmm. If you're coding academy, you're making decisions to be more coding focused. And so one of the things I'm really excited about us finding is, as we get that vision, how can that vision then help us craft a more efficient and effective way to deliver high school to a small number of kids? So the process we went through was really understanding, and we talked about a little bit earlier, is well, we have to find what the clientele is looking for. It's not what I want to offer or what you want to offer. It's what parents want for their kids. So the first thing we did was we surveyed every Vail Academy family and asked them a series of 9 questions. And I was really excited. We got 22% of the students' parents to fill out a survey. We asked them 9 questions. They were open-ended questions, so it was a little bit of work, but it was, what are we doing well? What do you wish we could do? And what do you want for your kids' high school experience? And when you tell your neighbor who we are, what do you say about us, to try to see what their insights on our marketing were, and what are your school's interests in, and what do your students want to be? And so it was really interesting, but to summarize it, what I would say is what people really liked consistently was small class sizes. Everybody loves small class sizes. Just hard to afford sometimes. And the sense of belonging, the family atmosphere, they really liked that part. When we talked about desires, what you want for your students in high school, that's where it really went. A huge group of people talked about fine arts and CTE classes and sports and languages. And quite honestly, things that we offered in Andrade and Empire and Cienega and Mike Mount already all day long and very well. And then another group of people talked about really small school focused kind of things. So we could even see from the survey that there are just people that just want that big high school experience. And that's okay. We offer that to them 4 other places. There are 4,000 chairs in a comprehensive high school in the Vail School District that we can send for those people. So we really need to focus them on, get our group to focus on what it is that we can offer to those families that will make them stay and want to be in a small school. So the other process we did was we surveyed that group and said, can you prioritize just yourself? What would you say? Here are the 6 things. And you say, this is the first most important to our family, and this is the second most. So they rank ordered them. I gave them to you in our non-staff group. So that was the parents and community members, a staff group, and then a combined score. And what you can see is the staff and non-staff were pretty close. And really, even when you get to the ranking, CTE and a college prep experience were really clumped together within a 1/10 of a point. And there was a whole point drop to people saying, I want to prioritize a K-12 school or a small school. And then there was another big drop to, I want a fine arts focused school, and another big drop to sports. So the example I brought to you earlier, and this is not where we're at yet, but eventually what a chart like this would able to do is we create a vision is to be able to allow a principal to say, we're not going to offer 4 sections of fine arts. That's not what our school is here to do. We're going to offer 4 sections of CTE and 1 section of fine arts. Or we're not going to have to work our schedule around to make it show sports work. There's 4 other high schools that you can play sports at. This is the high school that's here to focus on whatever they're going to focus on. So I just thought it was interesting that even the group that was there that was really, lots of the parents were there as a K-12 focus, they still realized that that would be great, but what would really be great is my kid to be college ready. What would really be great is my kid to have CTE support. So we're gonna, the next meeting, kind of tear into that and see what could that look like? How could that play out? And really explore what does it look like? Because you do make decisions. When you make a decision to be a CTE focused school, there's consequences and there's benefits. When you make a decision to do college prep things, there's repercussions. I'll give an example. Bioscience high school, every class is honors. If you're going to go to bioscience, you're going to go to college. You're going to go to college, you take honors. So they freed themselves of the burden of offering regular English and honored English. Everything is honors. Is that a good idea or a bad idea? I don't know. That's what we have to look into, but that's what they did. And we look at the same thing. If it was a K-12 site, what are the pluses and minuses? What are the repercussions of being a small high school? What about the school within a school model? Could we do something like that? So we're also going to talk about how do we get more input from stakeholders? Should we do more surveys? How can we get more information from people? And then there's some trips we want to take with this group to see some schools. And our goal is to have at least 1 and maybe 2 recommendations early enough to be ready for high school choice. So we're hoping by early Q2. We need a vision that we can talk to people about, not a what does second period look like yet in October. We can get to that by June. But by October, we should be able to explain to parents and students, this is what the school is going to look like next year. This is the kind of kid who would like these things, and this is where we're going. Okay, that was my quick flyover of where we're at halfway through the process.
Well, that's
Can you answer any questions?
Thank you. Do we have how much of questions, Ms. Strickland?
I just appreciate the check-in on the process of steps that we're going through. And I really loved that last survey that you showed where folks were choosing where they think that they would like the focus to be, and really that knowledge that something so small has to be something so focused to be successful. And it feels like the right path, the right kinds of conversations, and grateful for a large turnout of students and families participating in the process. That's really helpful as well.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Mr. Buster.
I just like that we're remaining 100% open-minded as to what the vision for this school will be. We haven't said this cookie cutter vision, this space age vision. We're allowing the constituency, our parents out there, those individuals that are most interested, those students that are passionate about the school, but also its direction now and going into the future. We're allowing them to have their voice so we know exactly what their wants and needs are for the future of the school. I think that's phenomenal.
I had a couple of questions. Can you remind me, what is the makeup of the committee that's meeting at Vail Academy? And do you remember how many people are on there, Mr. Booth?
Yeah, thank you, President Pratt. Mr. Hurley, President Pratt, members of the board, Mr. Kruth, there's about 45 members that have been at both meetings. It is about 21 community members, 24 staff members, including myself.
Thank you. And then just a couple of questions. So this is so helpful, by the way. Thank you so much for this update. The survey that families had participated in, I'm assuming that was the whole school, right? That was K-12.
Yes.
And so do you think that the families, you were saying that they're split between the comprehensive and the smaller school feel, do you feel like you were able to kind of parse that out for K-8 versus high school, Mr. Kruth?
President Pratt, members of the board, Ms. Kruth, we anticipated that concern. So one of the questions we asked them is, what grade is your student in?
Okay.
So we're able to say people who were in the K-8 answered it this way,
Got it.
who actually chose the high school this way. Knowing my story, you also know, like, depends on which kid you're asking about. Yes, for kid number 1, she wants this. If you have for kid number 2, it asks that. So we didn't get into that far, but we are able to say which responses came from current high school parents.
Okay. Perfect, thank you. Just thinking for me as a parent, I would answer things differently for my K-8 students. I mean, and to your point, yes, even between all 4 of my kids, but even, just thinking about that. And then just curious, do you feel like Vail Academy has a bigger percentage of early college kids than other high schools?
President Pratt, members of the board, Mr. Superintendent Kruth, historically, it has had a much higher percentage of students join the early college in their junior and senior year. I think that makes sense when you realize with the small school, there are just limited choices. So by the time you get to be a junior or senior, you kind of realize, okay, so I've tried that CT class already and I've done that class already. And so if you were at a traditional high school, they would have 4 novel science classes you could try, or last year you did pre-calc, this year do you want to do statistics? Hey, do you want to try AP human geography? Do you try to AP European history? You did band, did you want to do, there's just so many more choices that I think by the time a student in Vail Academy School gets to their junior or senior year, a higher percentage of them say, I think I'm college, because there are lots and lots of choices.
There are, yeah. Okay. Any other, before we move on, any other comments or questions? Okay, I think to me, this was so helpful. Our oldest son wanted to go to CNA. He wanted all the options, all the classes, and our next 3 kids have all chosen Empire. And it's been interesting because maybe most, if not all of the years that I've had a kid at Empire, they've had to choose that, they have 3 classes that they want and they're all offered only in 2 periods. And it's always a reminder of, this is what we're choosing. We're choosing a smaller school and it's okay. You know what I mean? We understand that sometimes those things happen and we're there because of all these other things. Do you know what I mean? And so that totally spoke to me when you said that, just helping families know, like, okay, we're not going to have all of these options, but we're here because of this. There's so many amazing things about Vail Academy. So I love that you guys are going through this process to help everybody know what's on the other side of that equation. So thank you. We'll move on to our next agenda item. I'm assuming you're staying here for our state testing results and data digs. I'm excited about this one. This is an important item, Mr. Kruth.
Thank you, President Pratt, members of the board. Mr. Hurley is going to walk us through where we are in regards to results. All of those results trickle in between the end of May and the end of June. We've been evaluating those. And recently, as we do every year, and then early in the fall semester, bringing in all our groups of schools and school leaders at those respective schools to dig into those data and make comprehensive plans. So it's just a good time as we're past the start of the school year to just provide an update on where we are with all of those things. So I'll have Mr. Hurley walk us through.
President Pratt, members of the board, Superintendent Kruth, I'm going to chart you to death here for a couple slides. So if you would like me to share these slides with you later on, I can do that. Here is our state testing math proficiency for the last 3 years in 3rd through 8th grade. The goldenrod color there is the state. So a bit of a mixed bag. If you look at that, 3rd was on a really good trajectory for a couple of years, and they had a pretty significant drop off this year. 4th and 5th grade are great trends. It looks like things are going great 3 years in a row. 6th grade and 7th grade had a dip, but then they've recovered, which is great. And 8th grade is on a concerning average. So you can see there's not a consistent, like, this is where we're at. It's like some places things are going great. Some places we should have our ears perked up. If you look on average, we're down 0.33% across those things. So I don't see massive systematic concerns, but I do want to know more about 3rd grade and how we can reverse the trend in 8th grade. Some good news. We are in those grade levels an average of 22% above the state. So if you just think about that in terms of little humans, which is a more fun way to think about that, those test scores up there represent about 6,500 test scores. So that is 1,400 students more than the state average who got a letter that said they passed the test in math. That makes me feel good. Of course, it should be better, but it's still a good reminder that good things are happening. Here it is in English. Very similar. 3rd's on a good trajectory. 4th's on a good trajectory. 5th is kind of flat. 6th went down, but then recovered really well. 7th went down, then recovered. 8th is kind of going down. So it's kind of the same thing, hit and miss. It is an average up 1 1/6. So that's a little bit better. This is up 20% points above the state average, which is good. So I would say in ELA, it seems like things are heading in the right direction. Just as a reminder for you guys, the ELA score, they combine the reading score and the writing score. To be included in here, a student has to have a valid score in reading and writing. If they miss one or the other, they're taken out of there, but that's the way it's always been. But again, pretty consistently, I mean, 20% above, 20 points above state average is really close to 50% more. If they're at 40 and we're at 60, it's doing pretty good. High school ACT math is an interesting thing. Since it's the ACT test, we don't get to decide when we get the state averages. So the state average color is in the middle there because we don't have the 25, 26 state averages yet. That's the 24, 25 state average. But because there are so many students that take that test, the state average doesn't change very much. You can see that we're up in math about 5 points, which is really good. Again, 17, 16 points above the state average. In English, the ELA score is the English test, the reading test, and the writing test combined on the ACT. We took a drop there of a couple points, so that's something we're trying to dig into. Was it a reading problem? Was it a writing problem? Was it an English problem? So we're trying to really dig into that a little bit more. But again, pretty significantly above what last year's state average was, and we are assuming state average is going to be about the same.
Can I ask a really quick
Yes.
question on your previous slide? Can you remind me what grades would most likely be represented here for ACT math? Because I know that it's not like calculus, it's not higher level math, right?
Correct. President Pratt, members of the board, Superintendent Kruth. So the ACT math test is about 2/3 algebra, 20% geometry, and then the rest is X and above. But what they do, and I have to put a big asterisk on that, it's one thing to say it's an algebra problem. The math isn't the problem. It's the paragraph of reading you have to do to get to the math. So once they can figure out what numbers to write down on paper, it's usually not a problem. It's how do I figure out which direction the train was going before I jumped the track and headed to wherever I was going.
Okay, thank you.
But you're right, it is not pre-calculus, it's not very few questions about. Okay, this is an interesting one. This is something we haven't shared with you before because we are looking in the future. So this is a spoiler alert to a slide that's coming up next. But the state gives us, those were proficiency points, and is how the students scored. Did they pass? Did they not pass? Were they highly proficient, minimally proficient? The other place that we get a score from the state is in growth. And in K-8, 50% of our label is in growth. So it's pretty easy to argue that growth is more important than proficiency in kindergarten through 8th grade. Well, it's a growth percentile. So they take a student and they compare them to students who scored exactly like them last year. So you got 30 out of 50 last year. I got 30 out of 50 last year. We are compared to each other. We're not compared to kids who got 29 out of 50. We're not compared to kids who got 31 out of 50. We're only compared to kids who are just like us. And then this year they put them in a percentile ranking. The kid who scored the highest is the 99th percentile student, and the one who scored the lowest is the 1 percentile student. And so by definition, the state average is 50%. If we did exactly the way we were supposed to do on the state, our kids would grow at 50. Well, in math, our kids grew at 53, and in ELA, our kids scored at 53.4. And so what that means is proficiency can be, kid walked in, they could already read, they already knew all the great things, they were going to be proficient. But did you grow them? And we're only comparing them to kids who already knew how to read and already knew how to do those things. Our teachers, our principals, our schools made those kids more successful than other people did. Kids exactly like them across the state, we outperformed consistently in English and in math. That's a huge thing. It's not about whether you had really smart kids and they did really well. It's what did you do with them this year in your class? Did you make them better? If that number was 49%, we would be, I usually say something very unnice, like this kid would have been better served somewhere else because the average did better than you did. And this is really, really clear that our kids pretty significantly outperform the state. So our teachers aren't just doing a great job of getting our kids to pass the test, but they're growing each and every individual kid, whether they're a superstar or a struggler, at a much higher rate in the state. So that's something I'm excited about. Okay, then we got all this data. We have lots and lots. We literally have a spreadsheet with probably 90 columns of all the data and all the information. And principals have been working on this all summer. In June, we met with the principals and just went over the proficiency scores, those percentage passing. In August, we met with just the principals and went over the growth scores. And then later in August, they brought in a whole team of 6 to 10 people, and we did the whole data dig. And then either last week or the next week, they're going to do a data dig with their sites. So this is something principals have been working with. And they have a really good handle on what's going on at their sites. Wanted to share something with you because when we talk about the data dig, we talk about each of our schools has kind of a pie chart for how the state prioritizes how labels are created. The 25, 26 on there is really, really important because there's going to be some pretty significant changes in 26, 27. Everything on there is going to change. The way they calculate growth is going to change. The way they calculate proficiency is going to change. The way they calculate English language proficiency is going to change. The way they calculate graduation rate is going to change. The way they calculate college career readiness is going to change. The way they calculate, what did I miss? Acceleration and growth, it's all going to change. If you read the newspapers out on the Auditor General, they found several non-compliance in our state labeling system. Just one silly example is we are the only state in the union that gives bonus points. So we give bonus points for things like science test. And what the Auditor General said is if the science test is important, include it in the label. If it's not important, take it out of the label. We get bonus points for our percentage of special education students. Again, if that's important, include it in the label. If it's not important, take it out. So we're anticipating some major changes for next year. Try to hide my views. We'll find out in January what the labeling system for this current year that we're living in is based on. So our principals will have in 2 months, they're lucky, to adjust the sales to the new labeling system. But we're just gonna keep doing what we're doing, and we're gonna hope that it works out great. And if we keep having the growth that we have and keep having the proficiency we have, I'm confident that things are gonna go well. But I wanted to go back more to that data dig because I talked about the things the principals have done. So what they leave with those data digs is they leave with a goal. This is our goal. And it's really easy to write a goal up on the board. That's great. Mr. Parks is here, so I'll pick on him. Okay, he's going to decrease the number of minimally proficient students. That's great. That's an admirable goal. But we spend way more time creating So what are you gonna do about it? So when Sienega says they're gonna do something, what are your action steps? Well, we're gonna create lesson plans that do this. We're gonna utilize KEG engagement structures. We're gonna ensure frequent checks for understanding. They really nailed down not this hypothetical, it would be great to lose 15 pounds, but how am I gonna do it? How will tomorrow look different than today? When should we check in? What should we do? So it's really been a lot of work. I'm really proud of what they've done, and hoping it's gonna help. Quick spoiler alert, we don't find out until November, but if you remember in 24, our GPA as a district was 3.76. We're really happy that it went up to 3.81. If you're a wagering person, you can wager that it's going to go up this next year. Yeah. Not a wagering person.
Just for a prediction market. I wager here.
Yeah. We're really excited about it. We cannot announce what we think it's going to be officially until they come on November 1st, which is really horrible timing for us, but we're anxiously anticipating the new things.
Thank you, Mr. Hurley. A lot of information to cover, but it's really talking about our core purpose and the things that we have most control over, and highlights and just overview. We're doing quite well in regard to that, and we're not satisfied with where we are. We keep pushing. And I know in previous meetings, we've talked about what level of support looks like for professional development for our staff. All of those things are have been ripped apart and improved to drive at this and how we're improving core instruction and outcomes for kids. And so I think what the other thing I'm encouraged about is these initiatives take time. It is not something you flip a light switch on and you see instant results. They take time to bear results in data over years. So we're anticipating that, and I do want to. We are anticipating that our GPA is going to be higher. We'll all be shocked if it isn't. And as Mr. Hurley said, it's always hard for us to do apples and apples comparisons with the state because things keep getting changed, and we're heading into another season of change on the way the component scoring is for labels are put together, and then there's a RFP that's closing at the state level for what assessment will be used, and so we anticipate something announced later this year, and it will announce a new assessment. We don't know when that'll be implemented, not this year, but whether that's the year next year, the year after. And every time that happens, it also adjusts the targets a little bit. So all of those things are things that change, right? But the things that remain constant are what is occurring in regard to instructional practices on a daily basis in every classroom. And I feel like we are more than we've ever been laser focused on that and have structures built around that to help make sure that really high quality instruction is happening, that our teachers are equipped with the things they need to ensure that really high quality instruction is happening and kids are learning. So whatever the changes are, we feel good about that in general, and we'll make the micro adjustments around that. But the core practices, it's a little bit like if you're playing a sport, the new rules they roll out for football every year, they change things. I don't know what they're doing with kickoff this year as an example, but good teams still win. So we expect that we're going to continue.
Thank you. Other comments or questions?
I do. And I guess I'm asking you to take a kind of a educated guess in regards to, so we're looking at the stats, we're comparing ourselves to the state, obviously. How are we doing against Pima County?
Great question, Mr. Booth.
Good question. Rather than give a broader answer, I'll ask Mr. Hurley. Any notions on where we are relative to that?
Mr. Buster, President Pratt, members of the board. I will just let you know there are certain people in our department that are more competitive than others, and they could list you which school, which neighborhood, which area have beat us and which things. One of the things in Pima County that we generally go straight to the Hickory Cat Hotels. How are they doing? What are they doing? when you look at it's really challenging to say, well, a place that has 5,000 high school kids, how do we do compared to a place that has 700 high school kids? So are our top schools neck and neck and beating those schools? Yes. We combine all 6 of the schools. It's not always as high as we want it to be, but we are very competitive. Most of our schools are in the top. There's always room for growth, but I'd be happy to get you from the person that has it, the ranked list of every school that is ahead of us. You can get them.
In school districts our size, we're going to be hard to. We're producing results that are incredibly competitive. When you look at what that means to have somewhere between 14, 15,000 students that we're serving, that's a different. When we were 2,000 students, it was a lot easier to control and easier for us to pull levers and get results more instantaneous. But when we're, the size that we are now, we pull levers and then the bow of the ship turns a little slower. So that's where we are. But we're relative to the school districts that are our size of shape, and everybody's competitive about what that looks like. Other ones.
Yeah. So Brad, I would add that in the last 2 years, there's been one school district over 10 schools that had a GPA of 3.9. There's lots of school districts with 3 schools that have a GPA of 4.0. But school districts over 10, the game really changes. And there's been one district that was over 3.9 in the last 2 years. It's just hard to.
You might take that back.
It's exciting. Mhm.
But ultimately, we are still very competitive, and you throw in all the offerings that go along with that with this school district, it makes it very difficult for a parent to choose other than Vail Unified. Thank you.
Yeah.
Ms. Stivitt?
Just kind of thinking about school labels and how it plays into the broader narrative of is a school successful? Are the kids in those schools successful? And that there are things that don't necessarily translate into a label score, and the concern around, are we teaching to the test? Can we talk just a little bit about the meaning of the label and how it helps us not necessarily teach to the test, but ensure instruction is happening?
Great question.
Thank you, President Pratt. Ms. Tippett, I'll start and then Mr. Hurley can add in. Our teachers teach to state standards, which is a series of skills and knowledge that need to be learned that's layered, and that's what the state is requiring us to do. So we do that. Math is a great example of that. Like, what are the progression of knowledge that you need to gain to be highly proficient in mathematics is a great example of that. That's our focus. And what I would say is the graph that Mr. Hurley put up around growth, that's the biggest thing, because kids come to us all across the spectrum, from and our task is to take them where they are and ensure that they grow, that they learn at a pace that ideally is 1 grade level or more per year. That's learning. A researcher that I love who worked here for us said the growth is the evidence that teaching occurred. And if growth didn't occur, effective teaching wasn't happening. And so are we teaching to a test, or are we I mean, a test is simply a measure of were those things learned. And so I would, we're proud of the results that are there. But the purpose that drives us is, and I love what Mr. Hurley said, when you think about all of the families that got a certificate that in Vail that said their students were proficient in math, was evidence to those families that their kids were learning the progression of knowledge that they need to learn in mathematics. That's evidence of that. If that evidence produces a label, great. We don't have control, and we don't have control of what the state board is going to do in regards to what an ultimate label is. Our focus is on our kids learning. And yeah, well, we're proud of those things. We should be as a community. They're evidence of what we're doing. We're competitive. We want to win, but we don't want to win because it's the score. We want to win because kids are learning. I can tell you, being in meetings and working with our staff, that's what focus is. Like we're laser focused on that. Evidence of that is occurring often reveals itself in those labels and in those scores.
President Pratt, members of the board, the only other thing I would add is two things. One is that state labels are a way that the state can incentivize us to work on the things that are their priorities.
Great point.
And so, for example, English language learners in both the high school and K-8 model are 10% of the label if you have more than 10 of the students. So we have several schools that are a 700 kids school with 11 EL students. And what the state is saying is it's really important that those students learn English. 10% of what it allows us to put the resources and the time and the effort into those things that quite honestly we should be, but if they weren't on a label, maybe other places wouldn't be incentivized to put that time and effort in. Also, that also plays out in high school. High school, 50% of the label has nothing to do with the test. It's graduation rate, it's college and career readiness indicators, it's language learners. So everything Mr. Cruz said is correct. I think our mastery-based learning model, where when all of us went to school, if every kid passed, failed, or got a D on the Algebra 1 test, we move to the next chapter the next day, is not how we do things anymore. We say, hold on, it seems like you didn't master what we wanted you to learn. How can we give you another chance to learn this? That's why our students are getting growth, because we're actively filling in their gaps in real time. We're not just letting that thing go. We're saying, wait a minute, there was a thing you were supposed to learn the last 2 weeks, and it seems like you need a little more time. So let's give you some more time. So principals have created incredibly creative systems to allow for students to have chances to relearn things that they didn't master the first time around. I think that's a huge difference that we're making. I think a lot of people would be surprised if they went to other schools to see that it looks pretty much like what it looked like in the
Any follow-up questions, Ms. Tibet?
Just a follow-up comment.
Yeah.
The change to the label that removes bonus points and just says, hey, if it matters, let's put it in the label, and that special education is currently a bonus point. I think parents need to digest that. That's not something that is a Vail decree or value, but that is an Arizona state decree and value. That says something, and parents need to digest that. And I just like the opportunity to share that I value that, and I believe it should be part of the label. And I am looking forward to the opportunity for that spotlight to shine right here in Vail.
Thank you, Ms. Tibet. Any other comments or questions? No. Thank you so much for this label or this presentation. I think that it's not numbers. These are like real impacts to students. And real opportunities for students. So thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, I'm assuming you're up here for the next one. So we'll move on to our next agenda item. This is the educational enrichment plans. This is an action item, Mr. Ruth.
Thank you, President Pratt, members of the board. This will be shorter, I promise. Mr. Hurley.
Yes, absolutely. President Pratt, members of the board. Each year, as you know, we have an incentive pay packet that includes educational enrichment plans. Those are traditionally done in the spring and graded and ready to go, and you approved all those. But at the start of the school year, we give people another opportunity to start things up. And so we had 14 EEPs submitted from 7 of our different school sites. They were submitted just as the other ones do. They get approval by the site, they get approval by the principal and the site council. Then it's judged by a team that includes teachers and principals and governing board members. And we're happy to bring them to you. That again, they were a total of 14 EEPs, which represent work that people just do above and beyond their normal responsibilities to give great opportunities for kids. And it results in 131 points being recommended tonight.
So with that, I'll go ahead and make the recommendation. Let's get there. That the Vail School District Governing Board approve the educational enrichment plans as presented.
Yeah, I'll take the motion.
I'll move.
Second.
Tippett and Mr. Bester, comments or questions?
I am just excited that there is a cursive club happening, along with some other really great fine art kind of opportunities and language learning and short story stuff. Just such a wide variety of cool stuff kids get to do.
I agree. I love EUPs and I love weekends, so I'm grateful for these opportunities for kids. If there's no other comments or questions, and I'll call for the vote. So all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not seeing any. At this time, I will accept a motion for adjournment at 8:50.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Not seeing any. The motion carries. Thank you.